the way that I think about the employment market today when it comes to data, AI, ML is the more things change, the more they stay the same. Yes, there are a lot of changes, and I'll be talking about those, but at the same time, one of the things that hopefully will bring some comfort to you is that employers are often looking for very similar things. The specific skills or technologies might change, but when it comes to the big picture of how they're hiring, what they're looking for, all of that actually is fairly consistent over time. And if you adopt a strategy that addresses that, you'll be doing pretty well as well. So just to emphasize the change, though, our last webinar with the Vector Institute was 7 months ago, mid-March, so less than 7 months ago. This is what's happened since then. March 14th, which I believe was the day before the webinar, GPT-4 launched. That in and of itself is probably enough to already emphasize how much is changing and how quickly things are changing. But even since then, June 30th, halfway through the year, I recently read a report that said that generative AI VC investments are 6 times that of 2022. That's for half the year versus the full year prior. Llama 2 launched July 18th. And if you're following the whole open source model versus closed models, there's a huge debate that set off that continues to this very day. AudioCraft, which is another meta model, launched. Anthropic announced a $1.25 billion raise at the end of September, which since then is basically becoming a $4 billion raise. We've had Mistral launch. GPT-4 Vision has launched. And of course, if you're following the news, literally this week, AI safety is becoming such an important and big topic that everybody is talking about. Who knows where that'll be next week, let alone a month from now or a quarter from now. So things are changing really, really, really quickly. If you're a researcher, this chart might be particularly painful or exciting for you. These are archive submissions. You'll see most of the lines are kind of flat for all topics, except computer science, which has grown almost 5x in terms of number of submissions in the last 5 years. So lots of content being published just from a research perspective. Models are being launched, products are being launched, VCs are investing heavily. You're probably reading that AI skills are required more and more. And then again, if you're a little panicky, given the poll, you might be wondering what the heck's going on? Why is no one replying to me, even though I have these skills? But employers are definitely looking for them. And at the same time, I want to emphasize, too, that this is happening across industries. So yes, computer science, obviously, and technology is an area where this is focused, but we're seeing quite a lot of investments in AI, ML, and hiring associated with that in medical, in cybersecurity, industrial automation, music, insurtech, et cetera. And I want to emphasize that too as a strategy. If you have a skill set that is different than AI, ML, but might be combined in some ways, then that's really, really important to also bring up and be aware of. But the point is, seemingly everybody's looking for AI, ML, and data skills. So hopefully that makes you feel a little bit better. Now, the other thing that's important to keep in mind here is that employees themselves are also investing in this. And so when you put yourself in in your own shoes and you're looking at who you're competing with, these are some of the things that they're doing. At the employee level, Salesforce recently released a report that said 75% of generative AI users are looking to automate tasks at work. 3 out of 5 workers are using or planning to use generative AI. 67% of IT leaders said they have prioritized generative AI for their business within the next 18 months. So this is something that everyone's doing, whether it's individual employees all the way to business leaders. And B, this is also something that's in roadmaps that will probably keep growing. And if not growing, at the very least, this excitement will remain for at least the next year or two, if not longer. But I want to emphasize also that the more things change, the more they stay the same. And what I mean by this is that same report and that same, obviously, organization, Salesforce, has also been tracking and following what are some of the major topics that are important to employers. And these are a little more consistent over the years. It's not PyTorch and diffusion models or LLMs. It's collaboration technology. It's digital and administrative technology. It's encryption. It's project management. And of course, data science more broadly, DB management, database management, analytics, et cetera. And I want to emphasize this because, the media and the news, it's really exciting to talk about existential AI risks and trillion parameter models and who knows what else. But at the same time, most businesses are still simply grappling with ETL, building reports, building initial models, and understanding what they can do. And if you can go to them and show them that, whether that's today, whether that was 5 years ago, whether that's 5 years in the future, you're going to have an edge up and you're going to have a good opportunity to get a great job. The other thing that I want to emphasize here, and unfortunately, this is the more things change, the more they stay the same, yet it seems to be spinning faster, is it's becoming easier and easier to apply. And that anxiety that you voted on is also driving more applications. So one of the things that we see with a lot of folks is that they apply for jobs, they don't get a response, they start panicking, they apply for more jobs. On the recruiter side, what ends up happening is they're getting more applicants. They're not so much panicking as overwhelmed. They're making fewer quality decisions. So more decisions are kind of made rashly or without reviewing all of the applicants, which leads to more job postings, which of course leads to more applicants. And so this negative feedback loop affects everybody. 3 years ago, when we started kicking off these types of webinars, we were talking about people applying to 50 or 100 jobs and recruiters seeing maybe a few hundred applications for certain roles. Today, we're seeing thousands of applications for certain roles. And so this becomes overwhelming for everybody. And unfortunately, there's no good solution here, but I hope that it makes you feel a bit better to know that, you know, you're probably going to be applying for a few more roles, and at the same time, the competition is it's there. It's always been there. It's just a little more stark. Now, what do employers ultimately want, though? Again, if you can show them, and this hasn't changed, this won't change, if you can show them that you can solve their darn problems, whether that's communicating well, whether that's having a great portfolio, make it as easy as possible for them to see you and pick you. This is ultimately what they want and what will make things easier. When we talk about the skills people are looking for, I'll also emphasize quite a bit just how difficult this is for employers. So the more you could facilitate this, the easier it is for everybody. So what does this mean for you nowadays, especially within the next few months, if not longer? There's sort of I would say seven major takeaways. So the first is you'll be applying for more jobs. Again, it's in our one-on-ones. It's not uncommon to talk to folks who have applied for 100+ roles, sometimes even more than that. So if you've applied to like 5, 6, or 10 roles and haven't heard back, don't worry, don't panic. That's normal. Keep going. Don't give up. Number two, more competition means you'll have to stand out via networking and original portfolios. This is also really, really critical. The people that we've talked to in our one-on-ones that have their dream jobs or are in the process of interviewing for their dream jobs, many of them have gotten those via networking, going to conferences and meeting folks, working with organizations like the Vector Institute, potentially just emailing or messaging people on LinkedIn about research that they're working on. All of this just makes things different, makes it easier for them. And if they have really interesting portfolio components that no one else has built or worked on, then that also makes them stand out. Skill requirements are changing more rapidly than before, so be aware of that, of course. I'll be talking about that in a lot more detail in a few minutes. At the same time, skills are becoming more important than credentials. Because things are moving so quickly and things are changing so fast, it's really hard to know what it means if you have an undergrad in computer science or a PhD in computer science, let's say. But if you tell me that you know how to use PyTorch, or if you know how to use Keras, or if you know how ETL works and you know how to optimize data pipelines, that helps me understand what you're doing. And regardless of whether you have a PhD, an undergrad, or no degree, I'll probably want to talk to you if I'm hiring for those things. Remember, again, the soft skills never go out of style. And this is something that I find a lot of people underemphasizing in their applications. If you can communicate well, if you can present well, if you mentor team members, employees well, if you build beautiful products, all of those things, they're softer skills, but they're very, very important. So help employers pick you. And finally, again, network and build a personal community. The Vector Institute is a great place for getting to know people, getting to know researchers, professors, employers, etc. So this is a good place to start. But beyond that, the more you build that personal community and network, the more likely you are to have jobs show up that might not even be published or publicly promoted. So I'll stop here just for a second to see if there are any questions that people might have. And one of the, so feel free to submit Q&As at any point throughout this presentation. One of the questions that I know has come up a few times now today as well is how do I actually promote my portfolio? So one of the things that often comes up in these conversations is, great, I've got a portfolio, I've published a bunch of things. Are employers actually finding this, and how do I show them? When do I show them? Certainly. Two things that I would say here that are incredibly important. One is this is where you really want to focus on networking. Reach out to people on LinkedIn, email folks, show them the work that you're doing. And number two, make sure that your resume actually has links to specific projects and specific things that you've done. So oftentimes what I see again is people will have like a GitHub repository, let's say, and they'll have 5 or 10 different, a GitHub page with like 5 or 10 and 5 or 10 different projects that they've worked on without any real context in terms of which project's the most impressive or relevant. And so that's very overwhelming. But if I see someone, let's say, message me, I work with natural language processing and LLMs quite a bit, and someone messages me and says, hey, I've been working on LLMs as well. Here's a project I've done on evaluation, let's say, or on explainability. You know that I will check that out. One other question that's coming up is, what exactly do I mean by portfolio? Is it a website, a GitHub? Great question. So ultimately here, what we do mean is having like a personal page where in an ideal world, it's a page that introduces you. So it might have your resume, and we'll have a list of projects that you've worked on, publications that you've published as well, so that you can show people what are some of your bigger accomplishments. Now, when it comes to portfolios, I'll also share a few links later in this presentation that you can see, although I'll say it very briefly here. If you go to phaseai.com, we have examples of Vector Institute grads from the last few years and their portfolios. So you'll actually be able to see how people have put this together in the past. But ultimately, what you want is a collection of projects that are really exciting to people and that emphasize your work. So I'll stop here with Q&A, but please keep going. And again, you've got my email if I miss anything.